Hello everyone and welcome to our very first live stream of 2023. Today I'm joined by Mod Bruno. Say hello. Oh, Mod Bruno's muted, that's a good start. Mod Arcane.
I am.
Hello.
Hey. And also Mod Jerv. Welcome everyone.
Hello.
We're here to talk about
Hi.
Secrets of the North. So I guess I probably should have also asked how you were doing when you said hi, but it's fine. What's nothing like a bit of an awkward introduction. Let's start with you, Arcane, top right corner. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty tired. New year, new me, a lot of shenanigans. Trying to actually go to the gym for the first time. And when did we start two-way development? I don't know. However long.
Oof. I bet that's been a fun process.
Yeah, just trying to move my body a little bit and not be as much as a degenerate as I have been for the past year or so. So
Nice.
that's exhausting.
It is. Trying to be healthy is tiring. I can definitely attest to that. How about yourself, Bruno? How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Not muted anymore. Been very much looking forward to this update. It's been pretty good so far. The reception's been good. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Awesome. Are your hands nice and warm now, ready for what you
They
got
are
up for
now,
us
yeah.
in a minute?
Yeah.
Very good. And Mod Jerv, how about yourself? How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. It's my first week back after the holidays, so it's been nice to be back into drawing stuff for DT2. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll get to see a little bit of the things that you were drawing at least in a little while. And we also have some fun in store with today's stream, as Mod Bruno will be here to show you how to solo the brand new repeatable boss from Secrets of the North, the Phantom Muspah. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If not, well, that's canon now. So before we get into it, there are some announcements that we've got to get through. I'm going to be speaking for a little while, so get used to my voice. I've got a big section to go through that Mudlight has kindly put together for me. But first of all, !SOTN or !game update will give you information about this week's game update, which is in regards to the Marjarat storyline continuing. So unravel the secrets of the North and take on an otherworldly boss in this brand new master quest. We also have a whole host of other changes this week, so check them out with !game update. We normally would start our streams off with a sneak peek of the week, but we don't have anything that we want to show off for next week, so instead we thought we'd take some time to talk about fairy rings, just a little bit. We obviously made a change recently, which brought the beam with butterflies to help with the increased clickbox size, and there's been a bit of polarized feedback in regards to the introduction of this new beam. So what we wanted to just talk about was that next week's game update will primarily be tweaks and improvements to Secrets of the North following player feedback. We're going to talk about this a little bit just to kind of put things into perspective as to why the change came about and what we can do about it. We know obviously feedback has been pretty mixed so far, so let's talk about why we did what we did and what's happening next following your feedback. So first of all, the main reason that we made a change to fairy rings is because we see many players, especially those on mobile, requesting a way to make the click boxes more user-friendly. Now, fairy rings are obviously useful for teleporting around Gielinor, so in order to prove their usability, we want to ensure all types of players, including those who frequently use them on mobile, have a good time with them. The problem is that there are a few technical limitations on how we can actually increase the clickable area of the fairy rings as is because of the way they've been designed and coded. Now, we know that players believe this is not the case, but we can assure you there's a very technical reason why we can't just increase the click boxes of all fairy rings. So the easiest way for the devs to have implemented it and improved on this was to just add this extra beam click box that you can see here in the middle, which is entirely clickable. Now, we obviously appreciate that the feedback we've seen, some of you said it looks a little bit jarring, a little bit out of place, because fairy rings, they're supposed to be mysterious rather than right there in your face, which this can be perceived as a little bit. We're also aware that in hindsight, we should have at least given you the heads up to leave feedback on the design before it was implemented. But in general, we just want to iterate that we do need to find a suitable solution that works for everyone, including those who have difficulty using fairy rings generally, whether it's on desktop or mobile. So we're going to be exploring what we can do to tone down the effects by speaking with our art team, and we'll share any updates with you. Some suggestions that we've seen is to leave the butterflies in effect, but remove the actual light beam itself, so the click box is still there, but it's not as obvious, just a few little cute butterflies flying around. But we'll have a look at what we can do and let you know as soon as possible. So keep an eye out for updates on that. But that was our sneak peek of the week. We've got some more art things to talk about, which is why we've got Mod Jerv here. So I'll hand over to our very own Mod Jerv to talk about some of the art that was involved with Secrets of the North. I think this is the first image of Muspah concept art, so take it away. What are we seeing here?
Cool. This is the Muspah. Yeah, so this is my first bust design that I've ever done for Oldschool, and I definitely learned a lot from it. I think it was hard to know what goes into a design at such a big scale, and how I work with hue shifts when we don't even have all the colors in the engine. And it was hard to make, but Mod Stefan did a very good job on the modeling, even with some missing bits of my concepts. And Mod Hand, this was his first task in animation, and he did a very good job on conveying the creepy, twisted feel of the Muspah. So I'm just going to say, spoiler alert, if you haven't played the quest, because I'll talk a bit about like why I made the design choices for this. So it turns out that this was Jalan, and he transformed into it while he was having a nightmare about Ma and her creations of the Muspah that she manifested in her dreams. So I wanted to really communicate the whole nightmarish feel and the vividness of dreams, so I kind of took the grubby, disgusting feel of a nightmare and kind of combined that and twisted it into like some depictions we have of Ma in past years, and tried to put that together in one design. And I wanted it to be like not necessarily a cool boss, but like a interesting boss that's, you look at it and you get uncomfortable and you think, ew, what the hell is that? And I think I saw a few reactions on the stream when it released, and a few people said, what the hell is that? And I think I succeeded in that. So yeah, on the next slide you can see the model that Stefan made, which is really cool. It's very well done. It was hard to find the colors for this because we don't have all the colors, but I think we got there in the end. I really think we did.
It looks awesome. The feedback on the bus itself and the design has been really, really amazing to see. So definitely smashed it out of the park as always.
Thank you. Yeah, I was nervous to see the feedback since it was my first bus, but I think people are freaked out by it, which is great. So we can look into the rewards now. I want to go on the next one. So I designed both the rewards. I think it's both Sarosian or Ancient inspired. The bow, which is a rapid fire bow, which uses charged shots. I wanted to convey the magic element of it, so I was kind of imagining the bow takes on some shape language of the ancient symbol, which you can kind of see in the shape of the bow itself, and then like the bits at the end I was imagining holds some kind of ancient magic or magic in the very tips of it, and that's where the bowstring is attached, giving that some kind of magic. So it's kind of having fun with the function A of the bow and how that would work out. And then Mod West made a really cool stance for the bow, which I think is quite awesome. And for the scepter, it's an upgrade of the ancient staff, and I saw some comments on it not being long enough. It's a scepter. Those are a bit shorter, so that's why it's not as short, but not as long. So I tried to make the shape language of this one be a bit more aggressive with the kind of spikes and open feel of it. And while now it might not look as impressive, the most I can say is just like, you know, wait a bit and have a bit of faith in the design, because I designed it with some further expansions in mind. Also, there was some feedback on how it's held in game, which is quite vertical. We're looking into this now, and it will be tilted like the Tamaron scepter, so it will be held more in a natural way as well. So you can see the models on the next frame. Oh, there we go. So that's Mod West's cool stance for the bow, and we got someone casting a spell with a scepter done by Mod Stefan on the right. So yeah, that's those.
They look awesome. We have got 2 questions, if it's okay to keep you just to go through them quickly, Jerv, that were here listed for you. The first one is that players love the teleport effect Haziel and Khazad have. We will be seeing more unique effects implemented. There's a bunch of teleport items that would benefit from having their own unique animations, for example.
I agree with that a lot. I think that was Mud Ghost who played around with that. He had a lot of fun with smoke clouds, and he also used it for the assassin and it looked really cool. It's like it fades into one of the NPCs and then disappears. And I think as long as we've had a lot of time to play around with things lately in the art team, so we definitely have more fun with spending more time on small things like this. So I'm hoping we can put more of a budget into more crazy teleport solutions. So yeah.
Awesome. I think many players would be excited for that. Just in general, animations and design has been insane, at least I think personally, and we see that through feedback. So fingers crossed there is more to see. Last question is quite simply, what was your favorite part of this to design?
I think so. The Maharat storyline has a lot of lore in this, and I think the most fun part was trying to get all that lore into a design, not too obviously, but a bit subtly and not too on the nose. And I think the challenge of trying to make something a good design while still having so many small lore elements in the design was the fun part of it, I'd say. Definitely.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you so much. Well, that's all the art stuff we have now, for now at least. Thank you so much for joining us, Mod Jerv, and giving your insight. Really appreciate it. Great job for yourself and the rest of the team. Let's have a look at the boss in action, shall we? And see how it plays out with all of those animations and the design that we were talking about. I think, Bruno, if you're ready, we can look to take it down. Yep. And we'll say farewell to Mod Jerv for now, and hopefully see you again in another live stream.
See you all. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. So, Bruno, I am going to let you take over on this. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can tell players about what it is that you're doing, maybe explain some things, or just not, and focus on PVM, and maybe Arcane can do some shoutcasting. How about that?
Yeah, that would be better. I'll probably try and focus too much on the boss, but yeah.
Ready for a play-by-play, Arcane?
Not really, but sure, I'll try.
Let's hop on in.
Cool.
Here's Mod Bruno going in with
the Gorok dungeon.
Oh, you looked out with range phase first, didn't have to worry about resetting. Let's see how it is.
Here he is with max gear, minus shadow, really showcasing to the masses how easy it is to kill in moderate gear. And, yeah, I think so. The boss has got a couple of different phases. So he swapped from range to melee, and now he's using ancients to freeze it, so it's a bit more chill. I know some people like to use the Arcane spellbook since Thralls is really good. You can use Corruption, Ward of Archaeus. There's quite a few interesting utility spells on the Arcane spellbook, but Ice Barrage is kind of just a classic and does make the melee phase quite chill.
For sure.
Every time he swaps between phases. Go on.
I was just going to say, if players haven't seen it yet, we have released some feedback changes today for the Muspah and parts of Secrets of the North, so make sure you check out yesterday's game update news post. One of them was to just make the ice spells a little bit more accurate in terms of their freezing. I think you're seeing the benefits of that now, with Bruno not really having to worry too much about them splashing, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting topic within itself. It's like, you don't really generally feel that bad if you miss with like a Sanguinesti or a Trident, right? Like you hit a 0, you move on with your life. Same with a Twisted Bow or a melee. Like if you hit a lot of 0s in a row, you'll start to get a little bit frustrated, right? But a one-off 0 with a Sang or whatever, it doesn't really matter too much. But when you like open your spellbook and you click on Ice Barrage and then you click on the boss and then you splash, it's just so infuriating. Like that level of frustration is so much higher. So I do think it's worth investigating the idea of maybe some freeze spells having slightly higher accuracy, maybe just for the freeze component or something like that. But for now, we've changed it so Ice Barrage and other freeze spells are slightly more accurate for the first time when you use it on the Muspah, just to alleviate that frustration, make it a bit more reliable of a strategy.
Awesome. Well, you seem to be splashing a little bit now. That max gear is not helping out as much as you'd hoped, eh, Bruno? Oh,
yeah.
God.
Bring him back. Here he is. There we go. We got the freeze. It's fine.
We got this.
So I know this skill's about to be over relatively quickly. Maybe we do one more afterwards, but could you maybe just explain some of the extra mechanics that are coming out for those that probably haven't seen them, Arcane?
Yeah, sure. So right now we're on the second to last phase. So he turns on his prayer shield, and you'll see that some people have opted to use things like Sapphire Bolts since they can drain the monster's prayer level. or you can use Smite, so you can like, flick Smite on to drain a monster's prayer level, or prayer stat, or an Ancient Mace, and there's a couple of other ways of draining prayer, but I think a lot of players are defaulting to the Sapphire Bolts right now, since they do quite a lot of damage. And then towards the end of the fight, like we are now, it's just a bit of a DPS check in terms of like the fight, just the arena is just getting smaller and smaller with all the spikes, boss attacks a little bit faster, and you eventually clear it all out.
Didn't quite flop
Joey,
without eating a single piece of food. I'm sick. God.
I thought you were going to die.
We'll go again. We'll go again.
I think you got chanced a little bit though, didn't you, Bruno? You got hit a 3 when you.
I got chanced a little bit, but you know, always happens.
It's all right. It's the pressure of being live on stream. All right, well, we can do one more then because it's quite a fast kill. As you did gear up in pretty much max.
It was 3 minutes, not too fast. I'm missing a few business items, like I don't have Masari or anything like that.
Oh no!
Yeah,
it must be really hard doing it.
The whole 1 DPS.
Crazy.
But also
Yeah, I think people are generally enjoying this fight. Overall, I think people are having fun with it. It's a little bit different. I think there's a bit of controversy whether it's like, where's the difficulty lying? I think people on the very low end of gear and skill are maybe struggling a bit more than they expected, and people on the very high end are maybe trivializing the content as expected. But I think it's sitting about right, personally, from everything I've seen. But we are obviously going to keep monitoring feedback, see where it really sits, make changes where necessary. But so far, I think it's in a pretty good spot.
I mean, I've seen a few people getting comfortable kills, or at least 1 kill trips with budget setups, rune crossbow and stuff like that, mediocre stats. I think even Mod Goblin has been doing some on his Group Ironman account, so it's definitely doable with lower gear levels. Just I think Bruno wanted to just make sure that he was able to get successful kills in this stream.
No, I'm throwing.
But yeah, it has been interesting to just see the different discussions come around in terms of the perceived difficulty, especially when it comes to gear. But as Arcane touched on, it's literally been out for 1 day, so we will obviously continue to monitor things and make changes as needed, such as changes that we made earlier today. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the news post where you got a
Oh shit!
There you go.
It's not happening. It's not happening, guys.
Change the neck to back seat. There you go. You got it.
Not even close. Like 1 hit point.
That's far.
Do you have JMod like attackable set to 0 or something, so you can't die now?
No, if that's on, then I don't take any damage at all.
Okay, all right.
I'll play it.
We're doing this in a test world just in case Bruno got a unique on stream and it was listed as just being a little bit,
I could give myself a bet if you want.
We'll see. How about get through the kill first and see if you deserve the pet?
Okay.
Yeah, don't get cocky. Might not even get there.
We're going to need to put you a new chest plate on there. There you go.
Oh, you baited him.
Mrs. Range got him!
Listen.
This is what happens when you listen to Twitch chat, like when you get backseated. We believe in you. You've got this. T-Bow's going to pull through.
Oh, he's got no food.
Uh-oh.
Last Cali did no food, so should be alright. More worried about the run, but yeah, that's fine.
Nice to see JMods play as bad as some of our players. Haha, said in chat. Well, that's not very nice. That's not a very nice comment, is it? All of our players are great at the game. Bruno's got an Infernal Cape, so,
I was the first.
I just don't think it's very often that you're put in a situation having multiple thousand people watching you live on stream. So that does add something to it,
I'm never lucky on the bot spot.
Here we go. I believe this is it. This is going to be the kill. You're going to get the pet. You deserved it. Look at those flicks. Clean.
Flick God.
You're not getting very good on the hits, though, are you? This is a slow kill. Oh,
Smite.
No!
Oh. God.
Nice.
Yeah,
he's dead.
I'm not a streamer, like it's too much pressure.
Pressure got to him. Yeah.
That's okay.
Stuff.
We managed to get the one kill, and then I will happily say that it was my fault that you died that time round because I backseated and distracted you. So yeah.
Got on the Armadillo chestplate and died.
But that was a really
Yeah.
good showcase though of the Muspah boss. Thank you for that, Bruno. We do appreciate it. I know the pressure of being on stream is a little bit daunting. So hopefully you don't take it too to heart. We all know that you're a gamer, really, so I wouldn't worry too much. And you owned it on the first time round, so
yeah. No kill no food the first time. So, yeah,
exactly.
I'm not too bad.
You're not bad
My
at
hands
all.
are cold.
You did
My
better
hands
than.
are cold.
I'm glad that it was.
My hands
Yeah,
are cold.
hands are
Yeah.
cold, and let's just face it. If it was me there, we wouldn't have even got into the lair, so it's all good. All right. How about we jump into some questions now? We've got a whole bunch that we've listed from the Twitter post and Reddit thread that we put out. And if you've got some questions that you want to ask us in chat, we'll try and get through a few of those later on. So that's at Oldschool RS in the chat. First of all, there's a little nice message here. We'll see how it develops because I've not read the rest of it yet. But Mod Arcane, congratulations on such a successful release. This first one is for you. Can you talk us through your decisions when creating the new solo boss for Secrets of the North? Tell us about some of your favourite mechanics. Are there any which are totally new and unique, or some of them taken from other encounters, like a raid, for example?
Talking through the decisions when creating the boss, I mainly just look at a bunch of different games and different bosses and different things like inspiration, and then I kind of just tried a bunch of different things out until I figured out like what actually felt good. I know for TOA it was a lot of paper designs where I would then program it all out and then quickly realize a lot of stuff doesn't work together. So I kind of just skipped that step completely and just start putting stuff in game immediately because you get a much better feel for it.
Okay.
So I think that was a big change for me personally, just trying to get it in game as fast as possible. Favorite mechanics? I really like the whole spike mechanic, how it's a random amount of, or it's not a random amount, but the initial locations for the spikes when you go into the arena are slightly random. And every time a spike spawns, it effectively duplicates. It'll spawn like another one next to it, so you'll go from 2 to 4 to 8, roughly. And it'll just get more and more, and the arena just ends up becoming this like quite generally unique shape, so no environment generally feels the same. So I'm hoping that means long term, like it's not as repetitive because you're not always standing in the exact same 3 tiles over and over again. I know for Hydra, like sometimes what it can feel like, you end up marking like 3 tiles in the arena. You're like, okay, start here, and then wait until this health threshold and move to this tile. I'm hoping it makes it a little bit more random. I quite enjoy things like that where you kind of don't want to scuff the arena too much. So I think that's quite cool. Working with line of sight, I think line of sight is something we've not really delved into too much. So the whole explosion attack towards the end where you want to hide behind the spikes, that's something that's quite cool. I like things like that. I think the mage attack's really satisfying. It's not particularly mechanically innovative or anything like that, but it's like a really basic range attack, and then every now and again you get the whole like Jad-esque, like, okay, now you got to pray mage. I feel like just the animation and the projectile is like synced up and really smooth and just fires this like big ball of energy. I don't know. It feels really satisfying. I don't know. It looks cool. I really like that. What are some of them are taken from other counters like a raid? I think there's a few that are probably somewhat unique. I don't think we've really messed with prayer very much as a mechanic. I think this is the first boss that really has prayer points, at least in a certain phase. So I think that's caught a couple of players off guard, but people figured it out pretty fast. I was quite worried that people wouldn't really figure that whole prayer phase for quite a while, and they were just sat there looking at the boss, like waiting for it to drain, and that'd be really boring, right? Just like, I don't know what to do. But people figured out Smite, and then we figured out the prayer, the Sapphire Bolts, which Sapphire Bolts have never worked in PVM before, so I was a bit worried people would never really connect the dots. So I was really happy with that. I think people figured it out and seem to be enjoying it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty
I think that Smite mechanic of obviously there's a lot of them in there that you've mentioned that are really unique and cool, but that's the one that I've seen a lot of people comment on that they just never expected. You know, it's not a typical PVM encounter of sorts that you'd come across, and not something we've done before. So yeah, really awesome to see. All right, how about on the flip side, Mod Bruno, for yourself? Do you want to share any complicated or interesting bugs or problems that arose when you were testing the Muspah?
Yeah, sure. There wasn't really a whole lot aside from a few like weird nitpicky things. I'd say one interesting thing was initially the thralls were able to just do direct drain to the Muspah's shield phase, so if you had a thrall out, that alone would nearly kill the whole phase for you, which we decided is a bit too strong maybe, so let's nerf it down a little bit and make thralls just do nothing, because it's not really prayer drain that they're attacking. So yeah. Aside from that, also when it does the explosion attack, the first couple tiles adjacent to the boss, like any spikes on those were kind of getting ignored, which was a bit confusing to me because I was like, there's spikes there, but it's not protecting me. So yeah, we fixed that as well. And for the boss, I'd say that's like the most interesting bugs, aside from a couple of things like corruption, not proccing correctly and stuff like that. But yeah, overall pretty smooth.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you so much for the insight. Appreciate it. A bit of a long question here, and I think the answer is going to be really easy, so I'll just blast through it. This one's also maybe for you, Bruno. Is there a hidden mechanic when it comes to the prayer shield phase of the fight? So even if you use Sapphire Bolt, Smite, Ancient Mace, etc., you are still met with the chat message, the Phantom Muspah's prayer shield mitigates regular damage. You still do massively reduced damage with your weapon, so it's weird to assume that Sapphire Bolts are the only way you can deal high damage to this phase. Can this be explained?
There isn't any sort of like secret mechanic. It's not that deep. We did intend the Sapphire Bolts to actually be like the meta for this, because I specifically remember testing Sapphire Bolts and making sure they work. Stuff like the Ancient Mace also work, but because the Ancient Mace isn't that high of a level weapon, it's very weak. So it's never really going to do as much as like a Sapphire Bolt spec, or even just like a smited bow spec or anything, bow hit or anything like that. So yeah, it's pretty simple. As players are coming out right now, it's pretty much how we intend them to kill it.
Okay,
I do think the chat message is probably coming out a little too much. It's intended to only say that, like the chat message saying the prayer shield mitigates regular damage. That's only ever supposed to come out if your attack effectively did nothing. So if you didn't have Smite on, you weren't using the Sapphire Balls, you didn't do like an Ancient Mace spec, that's when the message is supposed to come out. So if that feels like it's coming out too much, or when it shouldn't be, then that sounds like a bug. So it's just coming, the message is just happening too often.
Okay.
But I think functionally the boss is working, but maybe it's just that message is coming out a bit too frequent.
And that's something I imagine we can just, like filter or fix to just not happen as much as it should.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. This is a question that I think if anyone has read their updated blog that released earlier today will know the answer to, but let's go over it anyway, just for those that may not be informed. And if you haven't already, this is your reminder. Go check out the news post that was released yesterday. It was updated earlier today. It should be the first one that says Secrets of the North and more. It explains a lot that changed with today's hotfixes. But can you explain why the Saturated Heart is untradeable? And this is because the Imbued Heart and Ancient Essence is tradable. Why did we make it untradeable beyond making it unbaggable for Ultimate Iron Man?
That wasn't the goal, to just simply make it unbaggable for Ultimate Iron Man. I'm not that petty. But the general idea was like, I think the main game mode kind of requires a couple more untradables, like to kind of look for. Like there isn't very many things the main has that actually gets locked to your account. It's like a permanent unlock. Like, yeah, now I have this. And I was looking to have more of those, so I really wanted that as a perk, and obviously it's bold as that, so I'd like to think other people, or some people agreed. But I do think one of the oversights that was a bit unfortunate is like some people like to trade imbued hearts. Like if say you're doing tub with your friends, you can just trade imbued hearts between you and just use the each, or even within the encounter yourself, you can drop it on the floor and like trade it like that. And that's kind of nice, and we just effectively remove that. That's just an unfortunate side effect. So we are going to be making it tradable, so don't need to worry about that going forward.
Awesome. I think that was one that's stated for next week's game update, right? That it will become tradable?
Yep.
Great, and that will
not
also...
something we can hotfix, so yeah, we'll be with the cold fix on the 18th.
Awesome. So yeah, next week, Saturated Hearts will be tradable, and it also helps out for Group Iron Men in addition to that, because you can now put it into your group bank and trade it between players whenever they're doing their tasks that require magic. Speaking of hotfixes, today's hotfix, this is a pretty big one. We saw a lot of feedback actually after we made this change again. But it addressed a bug with the Phantom Muspah's melee attack. It's been referred to as the step back method, which is used to mitigate damage from this phase. Players have said it was a fun mechanic to engage with, so could the team explain why it was removed and whether or not we'd consider reverting the change?
So it was a bug. It was effectively every NPC has like core combat that it calls, like by default, and the Muspah was weirdly alternating between calling its custom combat scripts and the core one, and the core one just defaults to melee prayer always has a 100% damage reduction. So there's this like really weird behavior where if you stepped back, it was calling for combat, and if it was just next to you, it was calling the custom combat. So it was a bug that needed to be fixed, but I do think it was kind of a cool, quirky mechanic, so I would be interested in bringing it back properly. How that would probably look is like we would code it in a way where it would actually respect this behavior, but it probably wouldn't show the hit splat, because I think it's really weird how it hits a 0. Like I like the idea of dodging the melee attack almost, but not that like it hits you, but then for some reason prayer reduction is just higher. Like that doesn't make any sense that the prayer reduction is higher because you stepped back. It should just not hit you. So I think that's how I'd want to bring it back. It's like, okay, if you step back, the boss just misses. It's kind of similar to Nightmare's melee attack, right? Where if it hits, you step back or step to the side or something, it'll just miss. I'd rather just bring it back.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, well, that's maybe something that we could look forward to in a future kind of like update potentially. Maybe we should do a little quick poll in the Twitch chat. How many of you are epic PVMers out there that kind of benefited from the step back method? If we could maybe have a poll running to just say, should the step back method for Muspah be reintroduced, yes or no, and then let you all vote on it. And in the meantime, we'll get through some more questions because time is of the essence here. Does the old school team plan on making Smite relevant for future PVM? It was awesome to see this mechanic for the new boss.
Sure.
When it makes sense. Yeah. For this boss,
Nice.
It made a lot of sense because it's quite like a... Well, leading up to Desert Treasure 2 makes kind of sense because, you know, curse and stuff like that. So yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. Nice one. Thank you. Nice and easy. Moving on from that, let's talk about the Venator Bow. So someone has said the Venator Bow was very good in Barbarian Assault. This is again something that we have changed, so keep an eye out on the news post. But they asked if we could get more insight for why it was restricted in Barbarian Assault specifically.
I think we talked to a couple of people in the BA community, and they said that they didn't really want it in there for various reasons. I think the biggest one was reducing the skill gap or the skill required for the attack roll. And in the time, we were just in this position of, okay, this community really doesn't want this bow, and this change affects them the most. It just seems like a free win to just go, okay, it doesn't really affect very many people. It would only negatively affect these players, so we'll just make them happy. Like, it just seemed like a free win in there. Obviously, the last 24 hours has shown otherwise. So we've kind of reverted our stance on that. Like, okay, fair enough. We do generally agree that the game should evolve over time and things should change. Like, Inferno's got a lot easier because of this new bow. So why shouldn't other pieces of content? So I do think it's a shame for the people that really care about the prestigious nature in that, but I do think it's important the entire game evolves, and we shouldn't hold parts of it back artificially.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So just in case it was lost in the detail, just to confirm, it was hotfixed earlier today, so it is now usable within Barbarian Assault. So that's a change that we already make and reverted. There is now also a poll in the Twitch chat if you want to go and vote on whether or not the step back method should be put back in. Obviously, we have our own opinions internally. We're not going to take the results of the Twitch chat as vertebrim, but it's just interesting to see what your opinions are like within chat. So click on the top of your chat box and vote in that for us. Bruno, did I cut you off? Did you want to talk about this one at all, or I move on to the next?
Yeah, I was just going to confirm that has been hotfixed. So yeah, you can hop in with the Venator Bows now if you want.
Nice. All right, there you go then. Go and get good at the attacker role. So, a question for you, Mod Arcane. When designing the mechanics of the boss, did you feel limited knowing that there are meant to be 4 bosses in Desert Treasure 2, so you had to keep some mechanics saved for those bosses rather than using them here?
No, not really. There's just always more stuff to talk about, right? There's always more ideas. I don't really hold anything back particularly.
Nice and simple. There we go. So instead of Smite next time, we'll maybe introduce Humidify or Plank Make. Yeah, all right. So, a question for both of you. All right, double whammy. What player stage do you think this boss most appeals to? Does this match what you envision?
Envision?
Thank you. For some reason, just can't say envisioned today. When you first tested the boss.
Does player stage mean like a mid game, end game, or like?
Yeah, I think so. Like, what phase in the game journey progression do you think it should sit at?
It depends, like, what do you mean by like where it should set up? Because you can do the boss post quest on a 85 combat count, right? Like base 75s, like you can do it. But like every boss in our game, it's generally more efficient to just go train your stats up to as high as you reasonably want to, and make money at other more reasonable pieces of content, and then farm it. Like that goes for literally everything in the game, right? It's more efficient to get max combat and then kill Giant Mole than it is to struggle to kill Giant Mole with base 60s, right? You can kill Mole with base 60s. But I do think it's reasonable to maybe go there, do your 50, 100 kills, maybe get the Ancient Scepter for an upgrade and then drop it for a bit, and then maybe come back once you've got better gear. I don't expect mid-level players to sit there for hundreds and hundreds of kills trying to farm out the Venator Bow or the pet or something like that. So for that, I'd say, like, depends what you want from the boss. I think if you want only a couple of things, I think it's completely reasonable, like mid to late game. But if you want to farm the pet and like maybe Venator Bows or multiple Venator Bows because you're going for money, then I would expect that to be more for the late game players, like proper end game. Just because the gear matters a lot there, and I think that's a good thing. Gear should matter a lot at every piece of content. I think it's a shame if you're getting the exact same kills per hour with like a whip versus a scythe, right? Like the scythe should be better. It should feel good. You want to incentivize people to get better gear. So I think it's completely fine to kill it earlier on. I just wouldn't recommend farming it for loads of hours, but I also wouldn't say the same about any boss, Zora, Vorkath, anything really. Like Barrows is probably the exception, right? Because you just don't need gear there. The gear just doesn't matter. Like you get a Trident or an Ibans, and you're almost getting max kills per hour there anyway. Like the difference isn't as big of a deal going from wearing Rune Plate body to full Ancestral. It's like 100 mil for very, very little DPS in the grand scheme of things. Right, but for here, the difference between Arams and a Trident versus Ancestral and Shadow is monumental. Like it's so big, but I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, I've seen some players say it's like a mid-level boss, and I don't really know where they got that from. I don't think we've called it a mid-level boss, and I don't think it's fair to compare it to a mid-level boss because, well, when I see mid-level, I see something like Barrows or Sarachnis, those sorts of like levels of bosses where you don't really need that much to do it efficiently, whereas this, you do need a little bit of skill and some good gear. So I'd say it's more towards high level, but not exactly like endgame or anything like that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Hopefully that gives a little bit more of an explanation. I think, if I remember correctly, when we kind of put it out there in terms of its expected difficulty, because to begin with, we didn't put any information out at all, but then in later on clarifications, it was compared to a more mechanical version of Vorkath with lower stats. So, and you know, Vorkath is not exactly like a mid-game boss in its own right with the requirements that you have in terms of gear. But we did also state that you could defeat the boss with 85 combats, and I think that was listed in the blog itself as well, and confirmed that you can do it. It's just, as Arcane said, probably not the best thing to farm out long term if you don't have high combats and high gear, but that's the nature of bossing, really. So yeah,
I think you can see it within chat itself. Like it's so divisive, where it's like, what is mid game? Some people are saying Vorkath is mid game. It comes from a Grandmaster quest, right? Like Vorkath is an Inferno, sure, but that doesn't make it mid game. Like, the differences between like early game, mid game, late game, end game, like is so vague, and there isn't anything official, right? It's very subjective.
Yeah, I think it's just because Vorkath is mechanically simpler, has higher requirements to get to. The distinction gets brought across around about that, but I still didn't go and farm Vorkath with budget gear because there's just no point. I'd wait until I got decent gear, just like I would do the same here. So, well, at least that's some insight anyway from Mods Arcane and Bruno in regards to the boss and where it sits at. Let's have a look at the next question, which is, what is your reasoning behind dropping the Venator Shards more often and needing 5 to create the bow than just making the bow a drop that's 5 times as rare?
I kind of wanted to try something different. So I think generally having a singular rare drop is more exciting, and you have like the high variance, right, where you could just complete the entire bow in one kill. Like you just get it first kill. Like that's quite exciting, that potential, that idea that you can just get like a T-bow or whatever for 1 KC. But then you have the other side of it where the chance of going 3 times dry on something is something like a 1 in 20. If you're thinking about it from the entire player base, or even like your friend group, right? If you've got 20 friends that play RuneScape, I don't have 20 friends that play RuneScape. If you have 20 friends that play RuneScape,
I don't
like,
have 20
one
friends,
of you is
so-
likely to go 3 times dry, right? And if you're in the context of something like Lism and Shamans, for example, like going 15k Shamans dry of a Warhammer is depressing. So I kind of just wanted to try something different, which is if you give out more frequent, smaller quantities of an item, so for example, Venator Shards, you're statistically more likely to complete it in like an average range. You're less likely to finish it early, and you're less likely to finish later. Like you go towards the middle a bit more, like you average out, so it decreases the variance of it, and that's good and bad. It means you can't go as dry, but you also can't get as spoon. And I kind of just wanted to try to see what players really think. Like, do they prefer this style of drop? And it's a mid-level boss, right? It's not dropping anything crazy, so it seemed like a good chance to just try it out and see what people think. So, looking for feedback on that. Obviously, you probably won't really have much feedback until you've maybe gone dry on it or anything. So maybe after a couple hundred KCs, give me a message. But generally curious. We'll see how it goes. Maybe this is something we take forward. I think it's probably to have a bit of a balance. Like, you don't want an entire drop table that's just all shards. It's not very exciting. But maybe some of the more rare things should be broken up a little bit. Yeah, bit of an experiment. See how it goes. Let me know.
Well, initial reaction seems relatively positive. People saying they like it, they love it, prefer it that way. Big W. So there you go. Nice. All right. Regarding Secrets of the North, will the boss be Slayer task eligible?
Yeah, so you can get a boss Slayer task of the Phantom Menace, but you can't get a Phantom Muspah, but you can't get a Muspah task because there are no Muspahs, it's just one boss. So if you have the boss Slayer task unlocked, then yeah, you can get that as a Slayer task.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Next question is, right now in Secrets of the North, killing the boss before the Smite phase causes it to bug out. Will this bug be addressed?
Yeah, we've tried to fix this bug a few times. I think we've done it now, but let us know if we haven't. Where basically, the way the boss works is it goes from one phase to the next and the next. If you try to skip one of those phases, it will probably not work properly bug out in some way. So try to fix it by making it so that if the boss does reach 0 HP, whilst it's trying to transition to the next phase, it will regen a little bit of HP and then carry on properly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Another question is regards to damage being nulled between phase transitions near the end of the fight. Can this be fixed?
Generally, damage nulling is like really bad, right? Like, it's really annoying at Vanguards. It was really annoying at Nex. I don't know if it still actually happens at Nex. I haven't went back and forth on that for ages. But generally, damage nulling is really bad. I think for this, it kind of has to null it because it's going from like the hit points being regular hit points to prayer hit points. So it's like a completely different health bar. It's a completely different mechanic. So it kind of has to null it here. So I think just use that period where you're transitioning it to, or the explosion attack's just about to end. Just use that period to eat or something instead. You know exactly when it's going to happen, so you can time it and everything. So hopefully it's not too frustrating, but for here it kind of has to null it.
Okay, fair enough. Appreciate the explanation, Arcane. Right, the next one. So I got distracted because apparently chat can hear every time I gulp my glass of water. So I'll try and drink a little bit less
I think we like
aggressively.
Stay hydrated,
Well, yeah, you do have to stay hydrated, Hydro homies out there, it's healthy to drink water. Can the devs give any insight into what goes into designing drop tables for bosses? Why so many skilling supplies? ?
So we've had a lot of criticism in the past where drop tables are really boring. And we only really have like 3 types of items we can give out. It's either alkables, or it is a like early skilling resource such as like a seed or an ore, right? Like the very bare resource, or we can give produced resources such as bars and herbs that have like gone through a layer of skilling. Or we can give out like raw GP, or it's like any sort of uniques, right? We don't really have a lot of diversity, so sure, we can just give out alkables completely on every drop table. It's just purely alkables, right? But then that's interesting a lot of gold into the game, and that's really boring. So then we try and put a few skilling materials in there. And that can be okay, but then if you really rely on some skill materials, you end up really hurting the economy. It's like, say we had one boss that only dropped Ranar weeds, right? The Ranar weed economy would be really devastated. So what we try to do now is kind of like spread it out a bit, where it's like we get a little bit of seeds, we get a little bit of herbs, a little bit of ore, and just try and hurt everything ever so slightly, because no matter what it drops, it hurts the economy in some way. Adding a bunch of stuff into the economy is bad. We want to generally take out more than we put in. So boss is generally about, okay, people are going to be eating food, drinking prayer pots, like super combats and stuff like that. They're the resources that are consumed from bossing. We want to make sure people are consuming an adequate amount of resources and not generating too much. So it's about just trying to like get the balance right, not to introduce anything individually too much from any single piece of content, spread it out so it doesn't hurt anything. Sometimes we get it wrong, right? And we're like, okay, oops, we gave out way too many Ranar seeds from this drop table, and we need to change that. And that's kind of what we did today. We're like, okay, we pulled back on some of the resources slightly. It's still maybe giving out a bit too much. We'll see that. We just don't want to have any knee-jerk reactions. But we're pulling it back a bit. Most of the Muspah drop table is quite varied. Like, it spreads it out. Like, there is some seeds on it, sure, but they're not really common. But maybe it's just giving out slightly too many of them, which is, again, is what we tweaked today. But, yeah, maybe we didn't get it right here, and we can pull it back a little bit. But we have to give out some things. So it's either alchables or scaling supplies or uniques. We don't want to just drop nothing, and we don't want to have too many empty drops, right? Where we give you 3 pure essence or whatever, right? Like drops that are effectively a dead drop. That feels really bad. So it's like a balance of make sure we give a player something that makes them feel like their time wasn't wasted and they're just like going net loss on supplies. Make sure we're not giving out too much of any individual resource to hurt the economy too badly, with like anything in specifics. It is difficult. There's not a lot of flexibility. Something that we've been trying to do with some of the, I think the last 2 updates, is introduce new resources. So, for example, obviously we introduced Ancient Essence. Like, we could have used something else for that, right? We could have used, what would be a good example of something we could have used? We could have used Blood Shards or something instead of Ancient Essence. But generally, if we introduce a new resource, it gives us another option of something to drop a player that has a different type of desire. So trying to introduce more things that we can give out, so we're not always just giving Ranar seeds and always giving Ranar weeds. That's also a really good idea that we try to do, but it's obviously a little harder to introduce new things. Yeah, we can pull back supplies, but again, open to feedback. It seems like a general consensus is that it is introducing a bit too many resources, but we don't want to just completely hammer the regular drop table, because the uniques aren't particularly amazing on this boss either, right? And uniques aren't going to be holding like 100, 200 mil value, so if we really hammer the regular drop table, it's going to just look really unappealing to do for everyone. So it's difficult. Drop tables are really difficult to balance, honestly. Not saying we ever get it right. It's very, very back and forth.
The 4+ years of working at Jagex in community management, I can certainly say drop tables have been the bane of my life when it comes to feedback on new releases that involve PVM. But it's just, as you say, nature of the beast. But I feel like we've done a lot better this time round than we have in previous bosses, at least. It seems way more on the line of, you know what, it could be a little bit broken, it could also be a little bit okay. Whereas I'd rather see that than, holy crap, this is broken, there's a million threads posted, everyone's rushing to the boss, everything's broken, and then we have to change it and everyone gets upset and angry because they no longer make as much money as they did before. So I think it's okay. We can just have a continued monitoring of it.
I do have one more point. I know I've rambled a lot on this already, but I know people are like panicking about like looking at seed prices like plummeting and stuff, right? Completely valid thing to panic about. This is 2 things, like 2 major things. One thing is people panicking. Obviously, the market is completely player run. So if people think that the boss is dropping a lot of seeds based off some wiki rates or something like that, or their own experience, right? You see 12 Ranar seeds dropping, like, wow, this boss drops lots. A lot of that word will spread, so people start panic selling. So that's a big factor that makes them crash. The second thing is a lot of people are doing this particular boss right now. So it isn't the fact like, oh, some people are doing TOA, some people are doing TOB, and like there's a lot of people doing various contents that all have their own different drop tables, and it's like a lot more spread out. If like 90% of the community all just moves to one boss, yeah, a lot of those drops are just going to go down in price. There's more of this coming in than anything else in the game now. So it's the same with TOA, where as soon as TOA drops, all of those resources just plummeted because so many people are doing TOA, suffering from success, right? But that will normalize after a couple of weeks. People will go back and like, okay, after my 50, 100 KC, I'm going to just go back to whatever grind I was doing. And then it'll like go back to normal again. People stop panic buying and everything. But we will monitor it long term, right? Because we can see that like, okay, this boss is just objectively introducing too many seeds. But that isn't the only factor. It's not only about the drop table.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point to make, and a really important clarification as well. And that's also part of the reason why we just straight up got the drop table straight away. We obviously made some changes today, slightly reduced it, because we felt like even with, you know, player levels dropping down over time, it would still be a bit too powerful. But as Arcane said, you know, if we completely gutted it now, as player activity drops, as people lose interest in the boss long term, it could just then just become something that's just not appealing at all. And we obviously want to avoid that. But I think we talked a fair amount on that. I appreciate the insight. I want to get onto one more question from the chat, and then, from the sheet, and then we'll go into some chat questions to wrap up. And this next and last one from this is, can we get a quick start option to instantly spawn the boss similar to Vorkath? The 30-second respawn timer feels a bit too much since this is a solo boss.
I won't mind.
Could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's like how we do it, right? Like Nightmare is like really obvious. Like Nightmare goes back to sleep, you kill her, and then you wake her up again. And then for Vorkath, it's really simple because yeah, he's like an undead dragon and constantly gets revived. Now, Grotesque Guardians has a big bell in the arena that you can ring on, right? Like some things are a lot easier than that. I don't really know what this one would be. Like you just spawn a random item on the floor that you just click on. Probably would suffice. I do think stuff like that is generally better, that the player can start the fight whenever they want. We could just look at reducing the start time a bit, but there was a lot of feedback in playtesting that it's a bit too quick. So like pick up all your supplies because you can get quite a few things, right? If you get like a 6 summer pie drop and 2 prayer potions and a ranging paw, like that's like 8 things to pick up, and then manage your inventory, then heal up, re-prayer. Like that can take a lot of time. So we introduced it, we increased it, but the better players get, the more comfortable we get that whole like gameplay loop. So then it ends with just you're just sitting around waiting. You can just like leave and re-enter if you want to go really quick, but it's not particularly nice either, especially if you want to leave stuff on the floor.
Yeah, I was gonna say remove your supplies you've saved then that you're juggling, right? Maybe we I'm just joking here, but right, make everyone bring a spade and they have to dig the ground up to bring it back out of the ground. That's where it comes from. It's an underground worm thing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's my useful input of the day. Cool. So yeah, seems like we can think about it at least. Chat questions. What have you been saying? And I pray to Sarah Domin that these questions are tame because it's been a long day. Could we get the possibility to break down ancient icons into essence, just like the Venator Shards?
Won't be against it.
I'm not overly against it. I don't think it's necessary. There will be more purpose for ancient icons in the future, so multiple is not useless yet.
Cool. All right. Next question. Would the JMods be interested in adding more item clue steps and stashes? Maybe one with an upgraded ancient staff and another one where you have to equip a sun keris outside of TOA. That'd be a pain.
I won't mind, but yeah, like you said, it would be a pain. So I'm not inclined to do it. But if maybe there was like a new Clue Scroll expansion at some point, then yeah, it would make sense for us to add items that weren't out in the last Clue expansion.
I think it's a really good thing for us to do. I just don't know like when or why we do it. Like, is it just like really random? Like, oh, we just release a big update. Let's just add a bunch more clues and stashes and stuff.
Maybe
it is good because it gives more demand for items, right?
Yeah, that's probably one thing that we need to think about, because it always falls back. Internal discussions go to, yeah, we'll do a Clue expansion at some point and we'll bundle it in with then, and then we never do a Clue expansion because everything else comes out instead. So I think it's probably worth thinking about when new content comes out going forward, how we might be able to incorporate it. I think that's nice. Okay. Oh, this starts off nice. Here we go. First of all, lovely work with the new boss and congratulations. Thank you, Twitch chat. However, here we go. There's always a however or a but. After trying the boss, there was a missed opportunity for it to be a tri-brid fight. Was this intentional or discovered after players experimented a bit?
It was just never intended to be a tri-brid. I don't think every boss should be a tri-brid. It's not like we have many of them, but it's a bit of a big ask for a lot of bosses to be a tri-brid because of how much gear you've got to bring. It's not always particularly desirable. I think there is a time and a place for it, and it can be fun, but I don't know.
Cool. Fair enough. This question is directed towards me because I know that I've said this before in responses to people on Reddit because this is what I was told by the team, but I can't remember the exact reason, and I believe the one person who might be able to help answer it is not going to be on stream until next week. But anyway, we'll see if Arcane and Bruno can help save the day. They've said, Mod Ayiza, you once said that once we saw the boss, we would understand why the ranged weapon had to be a bow. Could you elaborate?
Oh my
Are you going to answer?
No, I need you to help me out.
I mean, I think it makes sense it being a bow rather than
It was
like
months
being
ago.
a knife
Christmas has happened since
or
then.
being a rune thrown axe, just being a thrown axe. Because you also use like arrows with this item, so.
I remember there
I
was.
really liked the idea of an axe. I like the idea of it being like a God of War, like throwing axe, like came back to you and everything. But it's just a completely different design at that point. But
no, I wanted a boomerang. To be honest with you, I wanted a boomerang, and I got told. I remember being told that there's a reason why it's got to be a bow, and I can't remember the reason because it's Christmas happened, so I don't remember. We'll find out.
I feel
for
like a
next
boomerang
stream.
just wouldn't fit, like at all.
I mean, it would
like
fit-
Secrets
it
of
would fit
the
in your
North,
hand.
this must like. Why is this?
Do you know boomerangs are an ancient item used by Aboriginals, hundreds of years, thousands of years old, in fact. You know, how old's Gillinor? Who knows? They could have made boomerangs. It's also a fantasy game. Who cares? It would have been cool to have boomerang. Anyway, never mind. Another question apparently for me. I definitely can't answer this one. So someone else please answer it. Can you mention if the pathing on the way to the boss can be fixed? A lot of us click the squeeze through fence, but get directed slightly differently.
I don't know what this is. Like, I guess it's bugged in some weird form.
Yeah, I imagine the pathing's trying to make it shorter for you, but not really doing its job properly. Usually, the way we fix this is move things out of the way or add things in the way. Like for bankers at banks, sometimes you'll click on the banker and you run to the back of the bank because that's apparently how the game sees you to get there faster, but it doesn't really work out. So the way we fix that is just to add things in the way.
People are saying that people are clicking on the stairs behind it.
Misclicking the stairs, yeah. People clicking
that
back.
could also
the click box.
Yeah, I have seen a few people misclick on the stairs when they're meant to click on the fence. So yeah, that could be it as well.
Cool. Okay. All right. Next question: was the Muspah's orb phase intended to have a safe spot?
No.
Can I ask the question? Are we going to change it? Because it wasn't in our feedback.
Nah, I think we're just gonna leave it. It's kind of nice to be able to just AFK that phase. Makes you feel like a god, just dodging everything around you. It's like Neo, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So also not guaranteed that you'll have the safe spot because, like, what if you accidentally put a spike there, and that safe spot's ruined?
So there's some form of like gameplay around it. Then I see. All right.
So it's not a guaranteed safe spot, but most of the time it is.
You can be base JMods for this stream then until next week when you decide to change it, and I have to try and communicate that and be like, well, design things. Yeah, it is what it is. All right. Would you consider making the Phantom Muspah weak to Salve Amulet or possibly even to Ancient Magicks?
I'm probably going to say no on the Salve because that does add quite a lot of DPS. You're welcome.
It's not undead.
Yeah, it's just a slug. Like, it's not it's not ghostly or dead or anything.
I don't think Salve works.
It's just a slug. All right, get your salt bags out then. Oh, maybe that's the hidden mechanic that the guy was referencing with the
oh no,
face.
you leaked it. God.
Oops.
I'm guessing they mean even weaker to Ancient Magicks. We slightly made it weak to Ancient Magicks because catching a freeze is now a little bit easier if the boss is unfrozen. I don't think we're going to make it even weaker to Ancient Magicks because it's already done its job.
It's a weird lore thing, right? So it's technically, at least in the quest, it's technically not a Muspah. It's Jalan has turned himself into a representation of a Muspah. So you're actually attacking a Majorat in the quest. You're not attacking a Muspah, and a Majorat probably wouldn't be weak to Ancient Magic. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Post-quest, maybe we can stretch it a bit, because it's technically not Jalan at that point. It's like a manifestation of energy, but it's not really a Muspah at that point either. But lore, I don't know.
Okay. Also, people saying Phantom. I think it's just Phantom because, I don't know, just lore reasons.
Yeah, lore.
which are valid reasons to make it weak to salve, but gameplay reasons, I don't think they'll fly.
That's why it's a bow as well, lore. Okay, I want to ask these last two questions, and maybe they'll be quick. This one has a response that someone has wrote on here that says, please ask it so I don't have to read anymore. What is the point of the frozen cache? What does it do?
It has good loot.
Cool. There you go. Thank you, Arcane. Will this boss get combat achievements?
Yes, it is a boss. It'll get achievements eventually when everything's settled and we're ready to give it achievements. Much like Tombs of Mascot did December, which was like 2 months after release, but that is a raid, so I expect it to not take as long.
Okay. We're getting extra writing in around the frozen cache with I am literally begging you. It says, please explain that it is... You can explain this one, Arcane. Can you see the sheet?
Yeah, so people are saying that it's bad. It does a roll on the regular drop table. It can give you uniques, so you can get Venator Shards out of it. So it's like an additional roll, but it's heavily biased to be good. So like it eliminates a lot of the bad drops of the drop table. So it's a very strong roll on the regular drop table. So it does give good loot on average. But yes, you can still get fire runes out of it, sure. But it generally will give you good stuff.
Cool. So it's like an extra drop from the boss that has a chance of getting better drops from the boss than a normal drop does.
Yeah, because it's effectively an extra roll in the unique drop table, which you wouldn't normally get.
Cool.
As well.
People are saying you can get caches from the cache. Cacheception. That's pretty cool, isn't it? How does that fit?
You can get a cache from the cache.
Wow.
How does that work?
Does that add to the collection?
Yeah, we need to find someone. Someone put a video out that shows how many cache to cache like back to backs you get in one go. I want to see what the odds are.
You could go infinite.
Yeah.
Okay,
right, someone's got to do it. Cacheception. I like that. Nice one, Rooster. All right, we've got some user-generated content, some things from the community that I'd really like to showcase off before we end, and then there's a little bit for mention of next week's stream. So if we can just quickly bring up the first image, and sorry to our lovely stream team for keeping you behind a little bit later. This is the, oh, look at it. It's good old Zabak, Wise Old Man, Sandwich Lady, and Gnome Child by the wonderful Witchcrafty. Always absolutely smashes it out of the park. That looks incredible, Zabak does.
I'm
nice.
the one on the
Great
top
work.
right.
Yep. Fair. Okay, next one. This is from Ajakna, and this is a rune necklace. That's pretty cool. We'd rock this on a night out, get a few looks. Looks awesome, though. Big fan. We then have a tattoo from the Oldschool community Facebook. Nice. That looks painful. Pretty cool though. Nice attention to detail. Who was that from? Oh, we don't know who it was. This comes in from 44 Slam, and it is titled Fashionscape. That is very cute. Big fan of the art style on that one. And then lastly from Kanji, this is labeled Map. And it looks like, is that lasered onto a piece of wood, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe. Oh, I wouldn't have wanted to be the one to have, like, freaking set the software up for that one to get it done accurate without burning the wood at all. That's amazing. It's really cool. Or maybe it's a stamp. Either way, it looks incredible. Great work on that. Okay, so... oh, never mind. I don't need to read the second bit. We're getting prepared for questions for next week's live stream already. I'll give you a heads up. Next week's live stream is most likely going to be lore related, and we'll have Mod Ed present, hopefully. We'll go over all of the lore and things, Secrets of the North and the Muspah. Didn't want to do it this week because it's a little bit too soon. Still people enjoying the quest and such and figuring it out for themselves. So look forward to that one. And then the week afterwards is most likely going to be dedicated to the Wilderness Boss rework release, which comes out, I think it's week after next, isn't it? Unless I've made that up. Yep, week after next. Okay, that wraps up this first live stream of 2023. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it gave you a lot of information and insight into what we've been up to, what we've done. We had a little art section and so on and so forth. Thank you so much, Jerv, for joining us earlier on. Thank you so much, Bruno and Arcane, for being here and answering all of the fantastic questions from chat. Thank you, chat, for being awesome. I will remind you once more, if you haven't already, ! Game update. Check out the news post, see all the changes we made today. Have a look at some of the things that we're talking about next week, or thinking of changing next week. We are looking into the fairy rings, so it's likely that the visuals of those will be toned down a little bit, so don't worry if you find it a little bit jarring. Otherwise, that is all that we have time for, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much. Good night, enjoy your time, and hopefully you get lucky at the Muspah.